Hi, this is Yolanda Vanveen, and in this segment we're going to learn all about how to plant tulips. Now, tulips are one of my favorite spring blooming flowers. They come up in so many different colors and so many different shapes. And whether it's a parrot tulip or a traditional yellow or red or even a black Queen of the Night tulip, they're gorgeous in your garden or in containers. And there's a few simple rules that I like to follow when I'm planting a tulip. First of all, I always remember when I plant a tulip to plant it just like a Hershey's Kiss candy with the tip going up. So if you can't tell which way is up, you can always go sideways, but never put it upside down, although it will probably work its way up. But I usually try to put the tippy side up and when in doubt, sideways. And when planting a container or even in any group, my rule of thumb is at least three plants or 3 bulbs of any variety. And when you plant them, there's different theories. Some people say to plant them 6-7 inches deep. But here in the Northwest, I found 3 inches is good enough. And you don't want to plant them too deep because I found they rot if they're planted too deep. Good drainage is the key with my tulips. So whether it's in raised beds or in a container, they've got to have good drainage. And I only plant them in groups of 3 inches deep. And the more the merrier. So even if you put 5 or 10 or 12 in one area, about 3 inches apart, they'll do really well and they'll come up really nicely in the spring. And again, I still have a theory, even in the ground, I don't plant them more than 3 inches deep. The books will tell you 7-8 inches deep, and if you live in a really cold climate where you've got snow in the ground all winter long, that's probably a good idea. But here in the Northwest, 3 inches seems to be the key. Any deeper and I lose them. So as long as they've got good drainage and they've got a place to multiply, they'll do well. And another trick I found is make sure and water your tulips over the summer. Because if they're in a pot and they're bone dry or in their ground and they're just bone dry over the winter, they'll dry up or they'll cook and they won't do well the next year. So if you put them in with lilies and calla lilies, or even in a pot, if you put a lily in the middle or a calla lily that blooms in the summer, or crocosmias that bloom in the summer in the same pot, they'll do much better. And in my containers, I try to keep them on the dry side for the winter, so I throw them against the eaves or in the greenhouse for the winter, and they seem to hold up better than if you leave them soggy all winter long. In the ground, I just leave them be in raised beds, and they do wonderfully, and they perform really well every year, and I never lose them. Now, tulips are really attractive to deer. So my trick with that situation is just put them in the middle of some daffodils. So I put daffodils all the way around the outside and put all my tulips in the middle of that group. And then that way the deer don't seem to mind or find the tulips, and they come up and they bloom every year really well. And over the years, sometimes you lose some of your tulips, but I've got some of the same tulips in my bed for 10-15 years, and they do wonderfully. So don't be afraid to grow them. They'll do gorgeous, and that way you can have beautiful tulips in your garden as well.